Well, Salesforce reported a fourth quarter revenue beat, but issued a disappointing outlook for 2027 amid AI fears. Let's get more now from Patrick Walravens, Managing Director and Director of Technology Research at Citizens JMP. Patrick, thanks very much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Saw numbers like solid. Let's take a look back for a second. Was it a solid earnings report?
Yeah, overall it was pretty good. And I would say that Mr. Benioff and his team are battling through, yet another transition. He founded this company in 1999. So there was COVID, there was the great financial crisis, and now they have to adapt to the AI era.
And that's the big thing, right? Nobody's looking back anymore. They're all looking forward. The fear is software is done with AI. Is that realistic?
It's a little more nuanced than that. So if you look at what's going on at Salesforce, there's really three things I would point to. One piece of bad news and two pieces of good news in this earnings call. So the bad news is, if you look at the business organically, the growth rate decelerated a little bit from 9% to 8%. And that's really the AI headwinds hitting some parts of their business. It's hurting their marketing cloud, it's hurting their commerce cloud, and it's hurting a business intelligence product that they have called Tableau. And those are all areas where we're seeing a lot of advances in AI. Now, the good news, so point number two, your first piece of good news is that Salesforce has their own pure AI product. It's called Agentforce, and it is growing like hotcakes. So it did 800 million this quarter, and that is up, are you ready for this? That is up 170% year over year. And then the second piece of good news is, the stock is down, I think, 27% year to date. It was down another 5% in the last night. Now it seems to be recovering a little bit this morning. We'll see. Might even end up in the green. But they announced a $50 billion buyback. I mean, that's like, 25 to 30% of the entire market cap of this company.
Well, one question I have on that note specifically is, it's interesting, and you're starting to see it with maybe a Salesforce pivot, but obviously the profitability of all of these software companies is still immense. And so to see the market reaction over the last couple of weeks in light of what is still an incredibly profitable business, whether you look at gross margins, return on capital, return on equity, it's substantial. And so do you think that management teams need to do a little bit of a pivot in terms of announcing buybacks, focus on capital allocation, and where a lot of the investor community had always looked on, what was year over year or quarter over quarter growth, where a lot of it has to move to the whole package of what are these companies doing in terms of buybacks? Because if your business is solid, a buyback at this level must be very accretive.
So, number one, the key part you just said was, if your business is solid. So you need to make sure your business is solid. And that means that you need to adapt to the AI era. Just as a touch point here, if you look at the percentage of software companies that made it from the on-premise software era to the SaaS era, like 65% of them didn't make it. And so I think that's no one goes bankrupt, but their growth slows and eventually they get bought, right? And so I think that's a good sort of rule of thumb for what's going to happen this time around. So, point number one, you got to develop your own AI products that will offset the parts of your business that are getting hurt. And, Salesforce is doing a great job of that. Workday's also trying to do it, right? Basically, every software company has to do it. And then point number two, if you feel like you've made those changes and the market hasn't recognized it, then we would love to see the executives themselves buying the stock, and then a big buyback by the company, like what this $50 billion buyback by Salesforce is another great signal.
And I just want to going back to Agentforce for a second, and 170% growth. Now, is that, obviously not sustainable at that level, but does it look like they can continue to grow that at a decent clip?
I think that is going to keep going for a while. So that's really only 5% of Salesforce's total revenue at this point. And this product didn't exist. They launched this product in November of 24. And then they launched, version 2 just a few months later, and then they had version 3 about a year later. So they really leaned in early and hard to coming up with their own AI solution. And that it can be a lot more than 5% of the total business. So the agent force has a long way to run.
In terms of their AI business and the growth that they've had this last year, are there still substantial investments that they're making into this? And how do they, as a company, and Mr. Benioff, get the message out in terms of sort of the adoption? Because I think that, as you've highlighted, that pivot to AI is something you're seeing all of these companies start to do. And how do you think that they're going to continue to do that and are there levels of investment required for that?
So yes, they have to keep investing in it. How do they get the word out? They did something really unusual, and I wouldn't want to see this on every earnings call, but I think last night it was quite effective. Mark Benioff actually had 3 customers dial into the earnings call. Right, one was a small customer, a company called Saster. One was medium, Shark Ninja, and one was large, Wyndham, one of the largest hotel chains in the world. And each of them talked about how they are using Agent Force in their business. And so that's how he's trying to get the word out. He is a gifted marketer, and he also needs to explain to the world how he fits in with OpenAI and Anthropic. And Salesforce is a small investor in Anthropic. And if Anthropic had a enterprise agents event recently, and interestingly, Salesforce was highlighted in that event as one of the customers who are embedding Anthropic in a product that Salesforce has called Slack. So those are all the kinds of things that they need to keep doing in order to explain, to help their customers understand that Salesforce has a great solution here too, and they should be giving it a try.
All right, we have to wrap it up there, Patrick, but thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Patrick Walravens is Managing Director and Director of Technology Research at Citizens JMP.